Welcome to another great workout. And this is outside. It's a beautiful day, and I came out early enough. Today, I want to talk about pre-diabetes. Eventually, we'll get to the topic of diabetes, but in general, I want us to understand the words that I will be using in those series that are coming, the basis, the foundation when we talk about blood sugar and diabetes, pre-diabetes. I want to go over some of that today. But I start by giving you some incidents when you wonder how many people have pre-diabetes. Have you ever wondered? Children, yes, children, and adults, how many of them have pre-diabetes? I'm in the United States, so I will be using just the data from the CDC. You can look up whatever country you're in and look up what the data says. The incidence of pre-diabetes, according to the CDC in America, the incidence, more than 1 in 3 American adults have pre-diabetes. And more than 8 in 10 of them don't even know they have it. About 1 in 4 adolescents that are kids between 12 and 18 years of age have pre-diabetes. About 1 in 4 young adults from 18 to their, early 20s have pre-diabetes. Just let that sink in. And this is not just about data. I see this every day in my work. I see children with pre-diabetes. So it is not just, there's the data out there. It is something that is real, that half of Americans, 18 or more, have pre-diabetes. And 90% don't even know it. So how do we define pre-diabetes? What are the labs that your doctor should be ordering, should be looking out when you get your labs done? In addition to other things, it could be just the blood glucose level, the fasting blood glucose level. It could be when they give you like about 75 grams of glucose, pick you drink it, and 2 hours later, check your blood glucose. But the most prevalent one, I think, is the hemoglobin A1C. I think everybody should know what a hemoglobin A1C is. Become familiar with the term so you can actually ask your provider, what is my hemoglobin A1C, or what is my fasting blood sugar? Hemoglobin A1C is a very important marker of your metabolic health. I also want you to understand another term called glycation. Glycation of body proteins. When you eat sugar for a long time, when you eat carbohydrates, when you have foods that turn into glucose in the body, when you have them for a long time, increased amount of time, the sugar gets bound to protein. One of those proteins is in your red blood cell, the hemoglobin part, which is the red blood cells that is combined to iron and carry oxygen to deliver it to the different parts of your tissue. Now, when you have that, too much sugar in the body, it gets itself attached to the red blood cells, and that's what we call glycation. Every red blood cells live for about 3 months, and they die off because the body is constantly making more. So that's why when we check your hemoglobin A1C, that is the lab, it looks back 3 months ago. How many red blood cells do you have that have been glycated, that have this blood sugar stuck to them? And based on that number, we can tell how much glucose, how much carbohydrates, how much things that increase blood sugar that you have been consuming. Your hemoglobin A1C 4.8 to 5.6 is considered normal. 5.7 to 6.4 is considered pre-diabetic. It means now you are on that borderline for diabetes. And then anywhere from 6.5 and up, and I've seen it as high as 16, means you have diabetes. So when I talk about pre-diabetes, it's for all those people in what we consider the waiting room for diabetes between 5.7 and 6.4. They are sitting, waiting to either go back down or go up and progress to type 2 diabetes. That's what we consider pre-diabetes. Those are the people I'm talking about today. And eventually we will end up talking about more in depth about diabetes. But the pre-diabetic group is what I'm talking about, because when you have pre-diabetes, there are so many things that you can do to dial that number back down and become more healthy. And I think what shocked me the most is the amount of people that don't even know that they have it because they never asked. What is so sad is some of the insurance companies won't even pay for you to have pre-diabetic level checked through hemoglobin A1C. Unless you have a fasting blood sugar done and it's a little elevated, then they are able to cover a pre-diabetic check-in using the A1C. So your part in all of this is, number one, to know what these numbers mean and where you belong, where you fall. Once you know that, then you can ask, how do I change this? A lot of people are genetically predisposed to having pre-diabetes or even diabetes. There is no doubt about that. You have to talk to your parents. You have to talk to your mother, your father, find out their medical history. That's how you know. If they have pre-diabetes, diabetes, then you are likely going to, unless you make changes to your life, make changes to your diet, and increase physical activity. So find out what your family history is. Increase in blood sugar causes insulin release. Every time there is increase in blood sugar in the blood vessels, the body has to react by the pancreas releasing insulin to help those blood sugar get to the cells for either using it up as energy, which is what it is intended for, or storing it in the liver and every other place in the body. If you continue to bombard your body with carbohydrates, starchy food that causes high insulin release, over time, just like everything else, your body gets used to it. And now you will need more insulin to break down the same amount of glucose, food, carbohydrate that you had maybe a year ago. Now you need more insulin. Over time, you develop what we call insulin resistance, which means your body is resisting, your cell is resisting the function of insulin. You need more to achieve the same goal. It happens with everything that you take, including some medications. So that is the big part of this, insulin resistance. Too much glucose damages the inside of your blood vessels, the intima, the inside wall of them. It damages them, making them more likely to accumulate plaque. So yes, we worry about cholesterol, but I want you to understand the implication of continuously having high glucose. The inflammation in the wall caused by glucose can eventually cause you to have plaque accumulation. Plaque accumulation within the blood vessels would eventually lead to stroke, heart attacks, even death or disability. When you have a stroke and you have one side of your body very weak or paralyzed, then there you are. You have a disability. And that's if you're lucky. So, pre-diabetes or diabetes are things that we must consider changing the trajectory of our lifestyle so that we do not get there. And if we get there, to work very hard to tone it down and bring it back to normal. That's the good news. We can choose differently. We can change this whole thing that I'm talking about. I assume as adults, we have a lot of power within us to make the changes. But I feel really sorry for our children who don't understand, who are not the ones doing the shopping, the grocery shopping, who are not the ones making the food. So they rely completely on you as an adult. Things that increase your risk of getting pre-diabetes or diabetes is one, your family history. That's your mom, dad, or your siblings. History of high blood pressure in yourself. Age, with increasing age comes, pre-diabetes unless you're actively fighting against it. Your ethnicity, your level of physical activity. Gender, men tend to get it more than women. And that's more likely because they don't go to the hospital to get diagnosed as early as possible. Women who had gestational diabetes have a higher risk of getting diabetes. Gestational diabetes is the diabetes that you get when you are pregnant and it goes away. Later on in life, you are at risk for getting diabetes. And then finally, your body mass index, your BMI, they use your weight and your height to calculate this. If you have a higher BMI, you have a higher risk of having pre-diabetes and diabetes. If you go to cdc.gov and look for the calculator on there to use you to calculate your risk, you will find one and input all the numbers and it will tell you what your risks are. But you should not be waiting to get your risk calculated to start making all the changes that will help you not to develop pre-diabetes or diabetes for that matter. You should be actively doing those things. Not waiting to be diagnosed, even if you don't have the opportunity to get your hemoglobin A1C checked or your fasting blood sugar. You should understand that if you're exercising, if you're increasing your physical activity, if you're eating right, which is putting more attention on protein, vegetables, fruits, rather than eating a lot of sugar, simple carbohydrates, starchy food. You can eat starchy food, but eat the complex starchy food that come in beans and lentils and other vegetables, root vegetables, things like that. That is how you improve your chances. I will have more videos for you on diabetes. Keep up the good work. And thank you for coming back to work out with me. Ciao.